So as you've just said, one of the primary differentiating factors, hence the name of collaborative robots, is that they can work collaboratively with humans within the same work environment. Whereas, like you've just said, industrial robotics, I mean, you would classify that as a separate work environment. Now,
Absolutely, yes.
and I think for some, the thought of working alongside a robot is a daunting one. I think that might be fair to say. They're large, they're heavy, and seem like collaboration with one would be unsafe. Could you speak to the concept of safety with cobots that you kind of branching off of what you had were touching on towards the end there?
Certainly, yes. That's one of the key elements that was an introduction of the collaborative robot, and the fact that it has the ability to work near and close to humans is the safety that's actually inbuilt into the robot itself. So it has a series of sensors throughout the robot or cobot, the joints, etc., and it's constantly sensing for any obstructions or collisions. And then the safety elements of it ensure that if it senses a collision with a human or any other obstruction, it will stop in a very rapid way that will ensure that it cannot cause or tries to avoid causing any harm to anyone that it might touch. And so there is actually an international standard that goes towards collaborative robots, and we have to meet those international standards of safety insofar as the stopping distance and the stopping time. That means, of course, that a collaborative robot cannot move as fast as an industrial robot. Um, it's just a function of that safety element. And it's one of the differentiators, of course. We don't move quite as fast as an industrial robot. We don't have as high a payload necessarily as an industrial robot. But again, we don't have to have that separation because the safety elements built into the cobot arm will try its absolute best to protect people working around it. And we can easily and always do demonstrate that to our customers, just how safe it is for the operators to be able to work close to it. Of course, safety is a very important element, and whilst the arm itself is collaborative, we have to ensure that the application is also collaborative. In some cases, it's not the case that the whole application itself is collaborative. If, for example, you've got a piece of moving equipment like a drill or a polisher on the end of your cobot arm, that application's probably not collaborative because that moving element, that rotating element on the end of the arm may have the potential to injure an operator if they get too close. So we do have to look at the overall application to ensure that the application is collaborative. Rather than just relying on the arm itself.
So you mentioned that there are a series of sensors on each of the joints. So what would a collision look like with each of these joints? Is there a difference? And of course, when I say collision, I'm not talking high speed collision. I mean, what does a collision look like with each of these joints, and how sensitive are these
Okay.
sensors?
Well, that's one of the elements of the international standards. The joint, we can actually program the sensitivity of the joints to determine the potential force or inertia that is imparted in the situation of making contact with an obstacle or a human. And so that's number one, we can set the sensitivity, and it's actually utilizing force torque sensors within each of the joints. And so it's constantly monitoring the force and the torque of those joints. And if it sees a spike of a certain amount over and above the normal operating parameters, it will then immediately stop. Now, in terms of immediately stopping, what that would mean, if it was to hit your arm, for example, and there was some resistance there, it's likely to move by around about 1 to 2 inches maximum. And often less than, I should be talking metric, shouldn't I? 25 millimeters it might move before it actually physically stops. It feels like if it hits you on your arm, it probably feels like a little bit of a light hit, but not a hard hit. It doesn't cause bruising or anything like that. You know that you've had some contact, but it's not the sort of contact that's going to cause any harm or injury to humans. So that's the sort of level of safety that it can impart.
So with customizing the sensitivity, like you were mentioning, is there a potential to create, for lack of a better word, safety zones where, you know, within the reach of the arm, there exists like a safer zone, depending on the application, which I guess, maybe for an application, maybe it, maybe there's a requirement for going quickly around something, whereas,
Mhm.
once that arm backs off and it starts to, occupy a wider reach, you want to slow it down so that it becomes safer. Is there potential for customizing these sort of safety zones?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. There's multiple zones that can be set within the collaborative robot for different applications. And just as you mentioned, there is normal speed and reduced speed. And what we would do is, for example, you can either set it at a particular area where it's well away from any potential human interaction. It can go faster, and when it's coming closer to potential human interaction, it goes slower. So therefore, the safety and the sensitivity is increased. Um, the other way we can do it is the use of area scanners, such that if a human comes close to the area, it will automatically go into reduced speed, or it can in fact stop. So we look at the application. We do it as part of our operation and planning and project management. We look at the risk assessment for each application, for each project, and determine the level of safety that's required based on the speed and movement that's required, and the customer's requirements as well. Each customer has their own specific requests in terms of safety requirements. But yes, we would go through that process, identify potential areas of risk, and apply the various technologies that are available to us to ensure that one way or another, the humans are going to be safe around this piece of equipment.